The Committee on Oversight and Government Reform will come to order. I want to welcome you all here. Timing is everything. Would Chairman Towns please come to the center of the dais, a place he finds, I'm sure, comfortable. If you'll all bear with us for a moment, I've asked Chairman Towns, who is an ordained minister, to do the opening prayer for this Congress. Would you please all rise?
Let us bow our heads, because we need prayer here. Oh, our Creator and our God, we gather in your presence to begin our work on behalf of the American people. Let the will to do what is right supersede the titles of Democrat or Republican. Help us to understand that we are one nation under God. Let us realize how important it is that we work together, understanding that there is no big I and little you. Help us, Almighty, to use this opportunity to lift people up. Give us the wisdom and guidance to better stewards for our fellow citizens. Help to correct the mistakes we have made in the past, and when we are not able to agree, help us not to be disagreeable, because we know that the bigger we make your name, the smaller our problems will become. So we come today lifting up your name, knowing the world will never be what it ought to be until we are what we should be. Oh, Father, as we close, bless Gabby Giffords and her staff and her family, and bless the staff of this committee. Help them to stay focused and realize that many are depending on us to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Towns, would you also come up here first? Just one quick question. Chairman, before we begin, and well, there be no doubt you are still the chairman and always will be when I address you, the committee would very much like to give you this ceremonial, very big, very heavy gavel with your name for your service to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, before we begin the official work, I would like to remind you that you are now only one artist rendering away from having your portrait in our committee room, which is being painted as we speak. So let us all work together to make sure you can make that happen at the soonest possible time, Mr. Chairman.
I'm so anxious to hang it, I might hang it in here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A quorum being present, the committee meets today to consider a resolution adopting the rules of the committee for the 112th Congress and to announce subcommittee assignments. Ranking Member Cummings and my fellow committee members, I am proud to introduce the Republican members of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform of the 112th Congress. Mr. Connie Mack of Florida has been a valued member of Congress and is chair of the Subcommittee on the Western Hemisphere at the Foreign Affairs Committee. Notwithstanding those duties, I look forward to working with him on the Government Oversight and Reform Committee and have asked him to take a vice chair role. Mr. Walberg has returned to the Congress, and we welcome him to the committee. I know that he will be a strong voice on restraining government spending, and I am glad that he joins us from South Central Michigan. Mr. Lankford, as a new member, is prepared to solve complex problems. He will represent Oklahoma well and has managed more people that are probably more difficult to manage than even members of Congress. Mr. Amish brings another perspective from Michigan. He understands how to engage his fellow citizens as a representative truly should. Congresswoman Burkle adds perspective from upstate New York to the committee, something we welcome here. Additionally, she is a former Assistant New York State Attorney General and a licensed nurse. I look forward to working with her on multiple issues that obviously she has gleaned over her career. Mr. Gosar of Arizona brings his experience in dealing with the nation's health care system to this committee, and we welcome him to the committee and have asked him to be the Vice Chair of the Subcommittee on Health. Mr. Meehan of Pennsylvania brings his skills as a U.S. Attorney and District Attorney to the committee. We need to ask questions and get to the heart of issues, and I believe he has uniquely that talent for a freshman. I rephrase that. A unique talent from his district and a talent that we are adding to this committee on several of our new members. Mr. Labriando is a former state legislator in Idaho. His experience will serve us well as we go after waste, fraud, and abuse, and we look forward to having him back in a seat that previously was held by another member of this committee. Mr. Walsh of Illinois brings his dedication to service to the committee. He is an advocate to control government spending and innovative solutions for the problems which our nation faces, and welcome. The gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Gowdy, is new to the committee. He brings to all of us a perspective, as I said, not unique, but unique from his district, as a prosecutor. He came to this committee by asking first to come to this committee because he believed that his background and his ability to look for the truth would benefit all of us, and I agree. Mr. Ross is a skilled former state legislator and attorney. He is ready to get to work for the people of Florida and America, and again, has the kind of experience that will help us get to the truth. Mr. Gunta is a former mayor of Manchester and was picked by his community by a fairly large margin from a very large field of people who wanted to come and asked for this committee, and I was thrilled to have him join us. Dr. Dissolay has practiced medicine in Tennessee for almost 2 decades, and I believe that his common sense solutions and understanding of what is likely to be the most complex issue faced in this Congress will add greatly to the committee's work as we try to find ways, as some say, to bend the cost curve of health care. Mr. Farenthold of Texas also joins the 112th Congress. I look forward to working with him to ensure that government lives within its means, something that Texans understand but perhaps is lost on many other states and certainly on this body in the past. A fellow job creator, Mr. Kelly of Pennsylvania, has answered the call to public service. He is not young, he is not inexperienced, and he does not lack from a history of signing the front of a paycheck, not just looking forward to the back. With that, I would recognize the ranking member, Mr. Cummings, for the purpose of introducing the Democratic members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And first of all, let me congratulate you on your chairmanship. I also thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having Chairman Towns to open us with a prayer. As a son of 2 Pentecostal ministers, I really appreciate prayer and have appreciated it all my life, and I want to thank you, Chairman Towns. Let me welcome back all of the members, our old members and our new members. And Mr. Chairman, we on the Democratic side have all but two of us have served on the committee in the last Congress. And I also want to welcome back two new members, and I say new in quotes, Bruce Braley, who represents the 1st District of Iowa, and John Yarmouth, who represents the 3rd District of Kentucky. They both previously served on this committee. They are great members, and we are happy to have them. And I know that they will bring a lot to our discussion as we all join together addressing issues of fraud, waste, and abuse, and the seeking of the truth. And so those are our new members, and we're excited to be here, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The committee will now consider the resolution for adopting the rules. The purpose of the rules before us today, excuse me, the proposed rules before us today were distributed to each office last Friday. In addition, the drafts of the proposed rules have been shared with the ranking member, Mr. Cummings, and his staff for at least the last 2 weeks. Mr. Cummings' staff raised a number of concerns with proposed changes to the rules, and have worked in good faith to address those concerns. It is my hope that throughout the Congress we will be able to work together in this same way. However, the most significant and welcome changes to the committee procedures in this Congress are not made here today, but in fact were done January 5th with the adoption of the House rules. The new House rules require 3 days public notice of committee markups. The legislation to be marked up must be on the committee website 24 hours before the markup. The amendments are now required to be posted online within 24 hours after their adoption. Roll call votes are now required to be posted online within 48 hours of the vote. And witnesses' truth in testimony disclosures must be posted online the day after they testify. I think we can all agree that these worthy and overdue reforms not only give the minority more notice and access, but also make the committee more open to the public. And after all, if we are going to open government, it should begin here. In addition, with the cooperation of the Speaker's office, we have made video of all the committee's hearings available online. As a first step in what I view as a gesture of goodwill to the previous majority, we are putting all of the hearings held in last Congress by Chairman Towns and his Democratic subcommittee chairmen online. As to subcommittees, the most significant changes in the committee rules is the creation, or if I will, the recreation of 7 subcommittees. Prior to the change 4 years ago, we had 7 subcommittees. However, they have been reorganized as we have re-expanded to do more work at the subcommittee level. The Subcommittee on the Federal Workforce and U.S. Postal Service and Labor Policy will have jurisdiction over Federal Civil Service and U.S. Postal Service, as well as labor policy in general. This subcommittee will be led by Chairman Ross and Ranking Member Lynch, and will have Vice Chairman Amish on board. The Subcommittee on Government Organization, Efficiency, and Financial Management will have jurisdiction over the economy, efficiency, and management of government operations and activities, Federal property, and reorganization of executive branch. This subcommittee will be chaired by Mr. Platts, who has previously chaired subcommittees here and has returned to the committee. I am informed that Mr. Towns will work as a partner in this as the ranking member, and Connie Mack, who I mentioned earlier, will be vice chair of this subcommittee. The Subcommittee on Health Care, the District of Columbia, Census, and National Archives will have jurisdiction over drug policy, the District of Columbia, the Census Bureau, federal records, in addition to oversight of federal health care and food and drug safety, something that we began in the last Congress on a bipartisan basis. This subcommittee will be led by Chairman Gowdy and Mr. Davis on the minority side, and will be vice-chaired by Vice Chair Dr. Gosar. The Subcommittee on National Security, Homeland Defense, and Foreign Operations will have oversight over national security, homeland security, foreign operations. This subcommittee will be led by Chairman Chaffetz. Mr. Tierney will be the ranking member, and Vice Chair will be Mr. Labrador. The Subcommittee on Regulatory Affairs, Stimulus Oversight, and Government Spending will have jurisdiction over regulatory procedures as well as oversight over the stimulus policy, federal spending generally. The subcommittee will be led by Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Kucinich, and Vice Chairwoman Anne-Marie Burkle. The Subcommittee on TARP, Financial Services, and Bailouts of Public and Private Programs will have oversight over financial and monetary policy, banking, housing, and insurance regulations, as well as financial crisis and rescues. This subcommittee will be led by Chairman McHenry. Mr. Quigley will be the ranking, and Vice Chairman Mr. Gunta. The Subcommittee on Technology, Information Policy, Intergovernment Relations, and Procurement Reform will have jurisdiction over public information, federal information technology, data standards, procurement and grant reform, and unfunded mandate reform. This subcommittee will be led by Chairman Lankford. If I got it right, Mr. Connolly will be the ranking member, and the Vice Chairman will be Mr. Kelly. And I might note that this subcommittee is the one that we spent so much time on a bipartisan basis trying at the full committee to get data standards and transparency embedded into government. I look forward to being very personally involved in the subcommittee activities, because I personally think that this is the legacy that Chairman Towns and I leave behind if we can make government more transparent through the kind of interoperable and transparent databases that we envision. The background memo distributed to all members on Friday describes all of the changes to the subcommittee rules, and without objection, it will be included in the written record. Hearing none. Before yielding to the ranking member, I want to address two issues the ranking member has raised proactively. With regard to subpoenas, the committee rules allows the chairman to authorize and issue subpoenas, and it has not been changed. The same rule has been in place since the creation of this committee in 1995 throughout both Democratic and Republican chairmen. Four other House committees also enjoy the same standard of the chairman being able to authorize subpoenas. Additionally, other committees allow recess and other cases in which the chairman can unilaterally issue a subpoena. However, let us understand, we were the first to have this, and it has seldom been abused. Education and Workforce also has it. Foreign Affairs has it. Ways and Means has it. The Select Intelligence Committee, in addition to our committee. Energy and Commerce, Rules, Science, Homeland Security, Natural Resources, and Small Business have slightly different, but in some cases, the ability to have a chairman issue a subpoena without a vote of the committee. In a letter to me, the ranking member said that my predecessors had an agreement that, in fact, would change that. I have seen a colloquy that indicates a willingness by Chairman Waxman and Mr. Davis to have an additional process beyond consultation. However, in fact, during the very good 2 years that Chairman Towns and I enjoyed, we had no such agreement, and yet subpoenas were issued after consultation in most cases, and I am not here today to complain about any differences that may have occurred. I understand the Chairman had a responsibility. He met his responsibility, and both sides worked with it. As you know, again, consultation is not required by the committee or for myself or for my predecessors. However, I believe it is a worthwhile practice, and it is my intention to consult prior to a subpoena being issued. The ranking member has also raised concerns about minority access to committee records. As many of you know, this is a recurring and contentious issue for all committees. The House rule on committee records are very general and of little help in crafting a practical policy on sharing committee records. It is up to the Chairman and ranking members together to strike an appropriate balance for sharing records. On this committee in particular, with its broad oversight powers to investigate any matter at any time, it is especially important that committee records not be indiscriminately released to the public without proper vetting and fact-checking. While Ranking Member Cummings and I have more to work on and more work to do in the coming to understand proper sharing of committee records, I am prepared to clarify the policy as much as possible today. Documents received pursuant to committee's formal document request by myself, a subcommittee chairman, or ranking members should be shared with the other party. I repeat, documents received by a committee pursuant to a formal document request shall be shared with the other party. However, the ranking member has asked for copies of correspondence between myself, actually issued while I was a ranking member, and a growing number of private entities and individuals regarding regulatory barriers to job creation. Well, it is and has been my stated intention to share this correspondence with the minority and the public shortly. I cannot agree to a policy that would require me to share a copy of every letter I receive with the ranking member, nor do I think the ranking member is prepared to share with all of us correspondence between the now minority and the White House in a real-time basis. Similarly, the work product of the committee staff, confidential disclosures by whistleblowers, and other sensitive investigative materials should not always be shared, nor do I believe the ranking member desires to share everything his staff writes with me. Certainly, whistleblowers contact both of us. In the ordinary course, there is fact-checking and confirmation before that, and ultimately, the committee is always joint in granting whistleblower status. I will continue to work in good faith with the ranking member on a reasonable and workable policy regarding committee records and hope that we will come to a mutually agreeable understanding. I now yield to the ranking member for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank you for recognizing me. And let me start again by congratulating you. And without a doubt, Mr. Chairman, you're one of the hardest working members of Congress, and I really mean that. I've seen that already in the month that we've been working together. And every one of us wishes you well in making our government more effective and efficient. I can say for every single one of our members, we are very much concerned about waste, fraud, and abuse. We are very concerned about government working properly. And so we look forward to working with you as we address these major issues. Mr. Chairman, you are now our chairman. You're not the chairman of the Republicans. You're the chairman of the Democrats and the Republicans, and we're very pleased about that. You are this committee's leader, and in fact, Mr. Chairman, you are our chief spokesman. Your words carry the official imprint of the committee, and your actions carry great weight and authority. I know we all have our disagreements. In fact, we'll discuss some serious concerns I have today regarding subpoenas and access to documents. But I just wanted to remind the Chairman of something that my two Pentecostal ministers' parents used to say all the time. They said, you can go far if you go together. You can go fast if you go alone. Before I took this position as ranking member, I served as the chairman of the subcommittee on the Coast Guard. And as a matter of fact, I just left that position less than a month ago. And that committee, of course, was a subcommittee of the Transportation Committee, where I conducted strong bipartisan oversight. As a matter of fact, Mr. Chairman, the #1 thing that I would say to the Coast Guard over and over again is that I refused to allow them to be caught up in a culture of mediocrity, and they know that. We held them to a very, very high standard, and we plan to hold this administration to a very high standard. For example, with regard to the Coast Guard, I worked with the chairman and the ranking member of the full Committee on Transportation, as well as my subcommittee ranking member, to hold extensive hearings and investigations on the multi-billion-dollar deepwater acquisitions, which sadly had been marred by hundreds of millions of dollars in failed acquisitions. Together, we also authored the Coast Guard Authorization Act of 2010, the first Coast Guard authorization to be passed by Congress in 4 years. I note that several portions of that legislation were considered individually in the House and passed in a bipartisan manner and without one single vote in opposition. The overall Authorization Act passed the House by a vote of 385 to 11 on the floor, and the final versions that resolved with the Senate passed the House by unanimous consent. It didn't matter to me who was in the White House. I sought out solutions, and I achieved them working in close concert with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers. So I was especially humbled when the Coast Guard announced last month that they were honoring me with the Berthoff Award, their highest civilian award. By the way, we bought them kicking and screaming, but we made a difference. They present this award each year to a member of Congress who demonstrates long-term vision and leadership and who makes substantial contributions to the men and women of the United States Coast Guard. I often call them our thin blue line at sea. I sincerely hope that you and I can work together in the same bipartisan and constructive manner. And I commit that if I do disagree with you, I will do so most respectfully, always with the primary goal of working out a solution that serves both of our interests, but more importantly, the interests and the integrity of this committee, and more importantly, the interests and the integrity and the goodness of the United States of America. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and at the appropriate time, I would like to raise a number of specific issues relating to the proposed rules and that I hope that we'll be able to resolve.
I thank the ranking member for his opening statement, and we will hold the record open until the end of the day for members who would like to submit additional written statements. We will now open the resolution for consideration. Without objection, the resolution adopting the rules of the committee will be considered as read and open for amendment at any point. The resolution has already been distributed to each of you and is in your folders. The clerk will designate the resolution.
Committee resolution offered by Chairman Darrell Issa, the rules of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform.
Does any member wish to speak on the resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I have an inquiry.
Of course.
Mr. Chairman, first let me say that I appreciate your willingness to work with us on some of the rule changes you proposed. Working with your staff, we were able to resolve many of them, including the rule on audiovisual coverage, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, and we really do appreciate that. So thank you, and I thank your staff for working so diligently. But I do have an inquiry about opening statements. Earlier versions of the draft committee rules would have prohibited members from making oral opening statements. This rule was dropped, I think. And, Mr. Chairman, I know that there may be a limited number of hearings when we may want to limit opening statements because it takes so much time. I understand that. My question is whether you commit that the majority and minority will be accorded equitable treatment in being permitted to give opening statements.
I thank the gentleman. And pursuant to the rules, at any time we will ensure that we have an equal and back and forth opening statements. It's the intention of the Chairman when we have hearings in which they are time sensitive or which there are limited time or in which our guests, particularly administration guests, have limited time. And remembering that although it changes back and forth, there's always one side who would like to have a long statement bashing the administration and another side who would like to have a long statement defending and saying how bad it was that the other guy's opening statement bashed. So for that reason, it will be the ordinary and customary procedure to ensure that the Chairman makes an opening statement or the subcommittee chairman, his or her counterpart would make an opening statement, and then it would generally be mutually agreed if within the time whether they went further. If it is an absolute constraint, I will empower the subcommittee chairman under the rules or myself to not go further. And it has been the practice of this committee, and I think all of us who are returning know it is a common practice of the committee when there is a time constraint to limit it to just the chairman and ranking member. I have, within the committee rules and within the House rules, the ability to deny myself an opening statement. Now, as you know, Mr. Cummings, that is rare that any chairman does that. But I will pledge to you that if I deny myself one, thus denying you one, it will be because the importance of the individual speech is so critical that I forego the good work of my staff and your staff, and we present it for the record. It is my intention, though, to try to have as much listening to people and then asking questions as possible. Notwithstanding that, I believe that if we go beyond the chairman and ranking member, that is on a mutually agreed basis and will alternate. Lastly, and because I want to be thorough, at any time in which a subcommittee has done work and it comes to the full committee, it will be the ordinary practice to have at least 4 opening statements. The chairman and subcommittee chairman who have worked on it, the ranking and subcommittee ranking that have worked on it. Because I believe that if the work of the subcommittee has been done properly, if anyone's going to forego an opening statement, it should be us. So I think you're going to find that there's no real change in the practical execution. We don't intend on somehow denying people, but we will always announce the start time and the anticipated finish time of a first panel, and that will probably drive the consideration. Additionally, if I may, every committee has to deal with how people are received from a standpoint of when they will speak, when they will ask questions. It will be the policy of this Chair, subject to your deciding on your side of the aisle, which is what has been normally the policy, and Mr. Towns and I worked this out. I will consider that people are present at the gavel, and a list will be brought to me from both sides. I will call them in that order. If you need to change that order, that will be your decision for your side of the aisle. I will always allow you to decide who speaks in which order, but we will initially start with the order of their being present at the gavel. On my side of the aisle, I might note that I do not plan on having very many exceptions. So those who are here first, especially the junior members down there, you arrive on time. Senior members do not. I do not intend to have a senior member arriving late immediately preempt you after you've been waiting for an hour. But again, I respect the fact that the ranking member will make that decision on his side of the aisle. We will try to stick very, very strictly to that because I want to reward the many members who picked this as their first committee and will be here promptly always. I hope that concludes the question.
But the gentleman just yield for one quick.
Of course I
inquiry. First of all, I want to express appreciation what you said about what you said about the subcommittees. I think it is very important that subcommittee rankings and chairmen have an opportunity to speak. Just one quick thing, Mr. Chairman, will you give me notice when you and I are not going to speak to staff? I don't want them to spend all night preparing memorable opening statement, and then we not give it. So would you give me a little?
I will commit. I will commit to you that, although when they're put in the record, sometimes they look even better. But I will commit to you that if we believe the hearing has a limited time, we will notice that as quickly as we notice the committee. Because at the point that we notice the committee, I would expect we'd be able to tell you an anticipated start time and finish time for our witness. I would ask that if you have a similar situation on witnesses that you've asked to come, that you also let us know so that we not find your witness expecting to stay longer or having to leave shorter. But I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you very much.
Does any member have an amendment to the resolution before us?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment to the Rules of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform offered by Representative Cummings. Amend Rule 12D by inserting at the beginning the following.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read, and the gentleman from Maryland is recognized on his amendment for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you for all of the discussions that we've had, Mr. Chairman, with regard to the issue at hand. The amendment, Mr. Chairman, would require the Chairman to seek agreement of the ranking member before issuing a subpoena. If the ranking member objects, this amendment would require the Chairman to call a vote of the committee. This standard, seeking the concurrence of the ranking member or a committee vote, has been the approach of all committee chairmen since the McCarthy era, with one exception. And from 1997 to 2002, when Representative Burton served as chairman, he issued more than 1,000 unilateral subpoenas. 1,200, I'm sorry. I apologize, Mr. Burton, 1,200 subpoenas.
Not gone, not forgotten.
Like you said, once chairman, always chairman. Anyway, he issued more than 1,200 unilateral subpoenas during the Clinton administration without the concurrence of the ranking member or a vote of the committee. As widely reported, this approach led to serious abuses, and it was abandoned by Representative Tom Davis, a Republican who became chairman in 2002. It's true that the rules provide the chairman with authority to issue unilateral subpoenas. Representative Davis understood that issuing a subpoena is such an extreme exercise of congressional power that it should be undertaken only with agreement of the chairman and ranking member or the backing of the full committee. I noticed that many of your members, several of your members are former U.S. attorneys and attorneys, and they can fully, I know, appreciate the significance of a subpoena. When Representative Davis handed over his gavel to Representative Waxman in 2007, exactly like we are doing here today, he asked Mr. Waxman to follow the same approach, and Mr. Waxman did. Let me make something clear. I did not want to offer this amendment, but it was my impression that the chairman would not be submitting these subpoenas for consideration of the full committee. It's my understanding in our conversation just prior that you have a response to that. And so, anyway, back then, Chairman Davis said to Chairman Waxman, Representative Davis and Waxman did, and for word with no changes, this is what they said. He said he would never, under any circumstances, ask this committee to vote on any subpoena he issued, even if it was extremely controversial. I think this is a mistake because it prevents an open and honest debate. Let me read what Chairman Davis said in 2007. He said concurrence or a vote of the committee would ensure that the issues are fully aired so that our members and the public can fully understand that what the committee is doing. I completely agree, Mr. Chairman, and the only reason not to adopt this approach is to avoid a full airing before the committee and the public. This is exactly what leads to abuses of authority. Therefore, I ask the members to vote in favor of the amendment. And, Mr. Chairman, let me be real clear. This is, all of us certainly come here from our various districts representing, in most instances, over 700,000 people. And I think that if there is, and all of us want to be included, and inclusion does not mean obstruction. it means being a part of a process. And you will hear me consistently talk, Mr. Chairman, and I know this is something that you're very concerned about because we've talked about it, is the integrity of this committee. And I would think that if there is disagreement between the chairman and most respectfully the ranking member, that those matters would be what before the full committee. And to be frank with you, I think it's a good idea to have the backing of the full committee when subpoenas are issued. And with that, I would ask the members to vote in favor of the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I recognize myself for 5 minutes to speak in opposition to the amendment, not in opposition to the principles you mentioned. First, for our esteemed former chairman, I will try to deliver some of the words that he may be too shy to deliver. Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas, and my understand stopped the post office from delivering during an insurrection. No one looks at Abraham Lincoln and says, my goodness, he was a terrible president. They consider the times. Now, Chairman Burton probably made mistakes. I understand that there were incorrect people on a couple of occasions who received subpoenas, and it had to be corrected. At the same time, I will not judge the time when I did not serve in Congress or what he faced. I know that a great many people left the country to evade subpoenas, went to jail over the crimes they had committed. There were real things that happened, perhaps not 1,200, but many. In those ensuing years, since I watched that as a civilian, if you will, and I watched his successors, with successor presidents in many cases, find other ways to do discovery, other ways to get most of these things done. I think for different times, a different procedure is appropriate. We are in different times today. We are not investigating the White House. I have no intention at this point. I have no reason to investigate the White House. We are requiring and insisting that government agencies be held accountable, and we expect them to come before us voluntarily. I do not expect to have the first solution to an agency or an individual working for the government or formally working for the government to be a subpoena. I certainly do not expect to have to subpoena people to hearings. Having said that, every chairman faces a subpoena now and then. Some of them are because individuals say, I can't speak unless you give me the immunity that a subpoena effectively gives me so that I can't be sued for coming in and speaking about matters that others may find somehow private or not to be disclosed. I have viewed the records, and I find that it has not been the policy specifically, in spite of that colloquy, to do required votes for even when a ranking member objects. Having said that, it is my intention to consult and to get your concurrence on most, if not all, subpoenas. Additionally, I take seriously your statement, which is that if we cannot come to an agreement, a vote of the committee may very well be the most legitimate way to resolve a difference of opinion between us. I don't see any of those here today. I don't think you are going to like everyone who I asked to come. Quite frankly, and we had this conversation privately in the past, there is a possibility you are going to want somebody subpoenaed, and I may not want it. This happened with my predecessor. We resolved it. It was contentious. It was difficult. And a threat of the full committee was part of the process. Chairman Towns did the right thing, and he did it on his own. And he did it written the way he thought it should be written. He did it to protect the integrity of this body. The subpoenas have borne a lot of fruit. From that lesson that Ed Towns and I have learned together, I expect that if you want a subpoena, I'd better take it seriously. And if I want a subpoena and you really object, I'm going to take your thoughts on why you object seriously. To be honest, I will ask other members of my committee, am I doing the right thing, and seek their guidance. And by the way, not just former chairmen. I will also undoubtedly talk to other members on your side and say, Am I nuts? Am I wrong? Is this somehow a subpoena that's outside the mainstream? So I don't intend on simply writing subpoenas endlessly. Having said that, there will be times during recesses in which consultation would be over the phone and a vote would not be practical or even possible. So I do intend and believe that we should maintain the rules as they are, work together, and bear in mind that if this doesn't work, it will be very public, and each of us would pay a price for being unreasonable. In this case, I believe it is reasonable to maintain the rules. It's reasonable to pledge to you that I expect to consult with you more even than Chairman Towns did, because I intend on notifying you personally if we intend to send a subpoena out and not through a staff correspondence. And with that, are there any other further? Mr. Burton, you recognize for 5 minutes.
Real briefly, Mr. Chairman, I would like to say that I agree with everything that you said. I would just like to make one brief comment about the period within which I was chairman. We had severe questions about illegal campaign contributions coming from all over the world. And the reason I issued the number of subpoenas that I did was because we were trying to get at the bottom of that. As a matter of fact, we had over 100 people either take the Fifth Amendment or flee the country because they didn't want to testify. So it was a very difficult time. These are different times, and I appreciate what you just said, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman, the gentlelady from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to speak in support of the ranking member's amendment and really place it in the context of what is happening in our country. Americans across this country are calling for a more civil political discourse. They are calling for a more bipartisan approach, which is results-oriented, not bickering and partisan attacks. And I compliment you on a lot of your public rhetoric has been very bipartisan and inclusive. You stated on Fox News you hope that this committee will operate in a, quote, less partisan manner. And I congratulate you on that, but your actions today are very different. They are not bipartisan at all. You stated with this proposal and in a meeting yesterday with Ranking Member Cummings that you will not seek Democratic concurrence for subpoenas and you will not allow the committee to vote on subpoenas. And so my question is, how is this bipartisan? And it also is very opposite to the tradition of this committee. Representative Chairman Klinger, in a letter to Ranking Member Curtis Collins, explained his approach in exercising this authority. And I'd like to place his letter in the record and quote
Without
briefly
objection,
from
so
it.
ordered.
And I quote, "I shall not authorize such subpoenas without your concurrence or the vote of the committee. I believe that this new rule memorializes the longstanding practice of this committee to seek a consensus on the issue of a subpoena," end quote. I would like to say that in recent history, one of the most contentious, two of the most contentious committees that reviewed and went into depth on issues was the 9/11 Bipartisan Commission and the Iran-Contra Bipartisan Commission. And they had an agreement that they would do everything together, subpoenas, meetings, everything was inclusive. And I truly do believe that the work of these two committees were among the best that this Congress ever did. They came forward with really important proposals of how to make us safer and to really move our government forward in a way that is positive. So I would speak strongly in support of Ranking Member Cummings' amendment and urge a bipartisan vote in support of it, and respectfully call upon the Chairman to turn his rhetoric into the reality of the rules of this committee, of making them truly bipartisan, inclusive, in the tradition of Klinger and Davis and some of the other, and Ed Towns, that were inclusive in the way that they went forward in issuing subpoenas and working in a positive bipartisan way.
Would the gentlelady yield?
I most certainly will yield.
Thank you. I just wanted to make clear that what I said today was specifically to clear up a misunderstanding that the ranking member apparently had in our meeting yesterday. I did not intend and do not believe I said that I would never seek. Just the opposite. I would consider seeking full committee votes. As a matter of fact, I'd consider seeking that even if the ranking member and I agreed on a subpoena, because I believe that there is a high chance that a very significant subpoena will happen during the next 2 or 4 years, in which it will be better to have the entire committee consider the subpoena and stand united. And I think the gentlelady's point about bipartisan, that is something that we will seek. We simply will not ask to be compelled to do it. Thank the gentlelady for yielding.
Will the gentleman yield? Well, there's a big difference. I will in a second. I respect the gentleman's statement, but the reality of a law or a rule is far stronger than seeking. And if you truly believed in being inclusive and bipartisan, you would let the rules stand and not take away the respect that a minority has in terms of this tremendously important power of a subpoena. I yield to my good colleague and friend from New York.
Thank you very much for yielding. Thank you very much for yielding. And let me say that, we also have a lot of prosecutors here, that a subpoena is a very serious thing. And sometimes you're subpoenaing people who are making $60,000, $50,000 a year. They have to get a lawyer. So we have to be very concerned about using subpoenas. And also, I want to say one other thing. This is not a super ethics committee. And I want to make that very clear. And so the fact that we don't get involved in terms of, subpoenaing in that area. And let's look at it very seriously, have dialogue. And I would say to you that in my days as chair, the gentleman yield 2 minutes. The gentleman yield 2 minutes.
I'd yield the distinguished former chairman additional 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Let me just say that sometimes I know it's difficult, but the point is that I think that there's no problem conferring, with a subpoena. I mean, it might delay it a couple of hours, but the point is that what difference does it make when you look at a person that might have to get a lawyer who's making $60,000 a year, $50,000 a year, or to come in and take time from his or her job and spend a day. And it would take a day here, regardless if you're coming from Maryland, Virginia, or Washington, D.C., because once they come in and we have all these opening statements, and after we have opening statements, then there's a vote. And then we vote for the next hour and a half or 2 hours. And then, of course, the person is just sitting there. So we need to make certain that we take this very, very seriously and not just do it because we can. And on that note, I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. Is there anyone else that needs to be recognized? The gentlelady from D.C.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I really seek some clarification based on your own opening remarks. You cite in your letter a case or two involving prior chairs, Mr. Towns and Mr. Waxman, where the committee rules on getting the concurrence of the ranking member and a vote were in fact not followed. At the same time, you use the words rare exceptions. You indicated that a vote might not be practical or possible, or we might be in recess. So my question is very straightforward. Do you intend, as a general practice, barring rare exceptions, to seek the concurrence of the ranking member and a vote as a general practice, which would, of course, not bind you to the exceptions that you specifically cited?
If the gentlelady would yield.
I'm happy to yield.
Understand that the rules have not changed since 1995. These have been the same rules for the committee on both sides. The rules do not call for concurrence. However, there is a long tradition of consultation. I intend on continuing that consultation, although it has not always occurred, as we said. I intend to do so. Chairman Towns and I consulted a lot about subpoenas, people coming before the committee, and so on. It is always, in my estimation, preferable to do it by a concurrence of the chairman and ranking member, whether we come to a vote of the committee or not. It is my recognition that 11 committees in some way, shape, or form in the Congress have the authority of the chairman to write a subpoena. That authority is no different than administrative law judges and all kinds of other people in government. It should be taken seriously and done only when necessary. That's my expectation. I know that—
Mr. Chairman, if I could reclaim my time. This is, as we open this session, it does seem to me, if that is the case, that some accommodation could have been found before today's meeting so that there would be an understanding that the general practice of the committee was not sought to be changed, so that we would not be divided on this very first session, because I believe I see some real possibility of accommodation. Be glad to yield to the chairman on that.
Of course. That's exactly what I'm trying to concur with the lady on, is that we intend on continuing within the parameters of the history of this committee. I will not be exactly Mr. Burton. I will not be exactly Mr. Waxman. I will not be exactly Mr. Towns. But overall, over the many years that this committee has existed, since 1995, there has been a tradition of the chairman has the authority to write a subpoena. The chairman most commonly informs in advance and has consultation with the ranking member, and I expect to do that. I also would say there has been an ever-declining number of subpoenas from this committee. I would very much hope that we can continue that tradition. My predecessor issued less than his predecessor, and his predecessor less— no, let me rephrase that. Okay, my predecessor less than his predecessor. Mr. Waxman exceeded Mr. Davis. However, certainly all of them were less than Mr. Burton's time. It's my hope that we will find tools other than subpoenas to get people to be before us. And I might note, if I could, for the gentlelady, that we've also made deposition reform, that we insisted that the full House provide anyone who is being asked to be deposed, which is in effect more common for this committee, to have an absolute right to have members of Congress present unless they waive those rights. So we are trying, even when we do have to ask somebody to make sworn testimony before this committee, that we do it in a more fair way. And I expect that we will continue a trend that Mr. Towns did, which is less subpoenas, more cooperation, and a lot less rancory on doing things from one side of the dais. I think we set a good example in the last Congress. I hope we continue it. Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Ohio. Sorry, do we have someone on this side? The gentleman from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may ask the Chairman, is this section of the rules regarding subpoenas the exact same as the last Congress?
It's identical.
Well, that's fascinating, absolutely fascinating that the now minority didn't see to change the rules when they actually had the votes to do it and had the majority to do it. So I would just ask my colleagues to be aware of the history here. This is the same operation of the rule, same exact language as the rule in the last Congress with a Democrat chairman and a majority of Democrats in the House. And so accepting that same language, I think, was reasonable. I certainly appreciate the chairman's change to the deposition authority. I think that's important to note for the committee and for the public to know that is a substantial change, giving witnesses more rights in this Congress than they had in previous Congresses. And with that, I would
would the gentleman yield?
Sure.
You know, I might note, the gentleman makes a good point, but I might note that on September 11th, 2009, during a time of great cooperation with a chairman that we all respect, Jennifer Savavian, who was the lead counsel, received at 4:30 p.m. the following: "This afternoon we are going to serve subpoena on Media Ratings Council for documents pertaining to Arbitron's use of the personal people meter. Signed, John." And I would just, and I'd ask unanimous consent that be placed in the record. I'm, without objection, so ordered. First time I got to do that. The fact is that that was an exception. I don't know the details, but staff sent it through. The chairman obviously had to sign it. It was a Friday afternoon, and we received it effectively after the fact and after business hours. It was not an unreasonable subpoena. It was not one in which we screamed and yelled, "How dare you go after this information?" But it was one in which there was no consultation. It is my intent to make sure that we're very careful in light of that, because the only thing that bothered us about this is that we got told after the fact and we didn't have normal consultation. So I'm, as the gentleman from North Carolina is acutely aware, it is so much better to have the consultation that I expect to do it always. I yield back.
And reclaiming my time, I certainly appreciate that, and I would express to my colleagues that it's my hope that we can get voting here and get moving. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. Other folks on your side? Mr. Kucinich.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think, seeing as we're at the beginning of this process, it's important, not just for this committee, but for this Congress, to be able to have clarity about the process under which this committee will exercise the power that it's given by the Congress. And frankly, with all due respect, I don't believe that up to this point the Chairman's explanations have added clarity to this debate over the Cummings amendment that says that with the concurrence of the ranking minority member, subpoenas would be issued. Now, the word concurrence is an important word here, because if you look at the letter that comes from March 6, 1996, written by a Republican chairman of the Committee on Government.
Would the gentleman suspend?
No.
The gentleman has.
I want to.
If the gentleman would suspend.
No, I want to make my point.
I want you to make your point, but I want you to be aware.
To the rules,
you are
my time?
The gentleman will suspend. You are speaking on an amendment. As long as you speak on the amendment, that's fine. Please consider that you do not speak about general agreements and so on. I've tolerated a great deal, and I will tolerate more. But the gentleman will suspend. Your time will be added back.
Under what point does the chairman interrupt me?
I'm making a point of order to the gentleman. The point of order is, please speak to the amendment, not to general agreements. I have myself allowed both sides to talk about general agreements. If you would like to speak to the amendment, the gentleman is recognized for his full 5 minutes.
As the chairman of the Committee on Government Reform and Oversight stated in his letter to members of the committee on March 6, 1996, he said the proposed rule requires that if a subpoena is required in the case of an affidavit or deposition in a travel office matter, I shall not authorize such subpoena without your concurrence or the vote of the committee. Now, the chairman in this debate has made the following statements: that he would consider consulting, that it's his intention to consult, that it's preferable to concur, and to listen to the chairman's statements, you would think that you would be supporting the Cummings amendment. Instead, what we have here is, I think, a rather dangerous equivocation on the issue of unilateral subpoenas. This is not a small matter, because this is not about you, Mr. Chairman. With all due respect, and I do respect you, this is not about you. This is about the power that this committee has, working through the chair, to be able to issue subpoenas. And to do that without the concurrence of the ranking member, and I would further say of the committee itself, I think, is to sweep aside the concerns that people would have about the constitutional protections of witnesses. Because this isn't just about us. This is about the people we would call before us. So I think that this is an issue that members of the committee ought to be exercised about, because of the implications that the action that will be taken, we will take today, will have on the next 2 years and on every hearing that follows us. I am not someone who came here to cover up for the Obama administration. Anybody who knows me knows that when I say that, if there's something wrong over there, I'll be the first one to call them on it. But I am someone who believes that this process needs to move in a way that is fair and impartial and doesn't degrade the oversight capacity and responsibilities as Congress had. So, you know, we can quote Abraham Lincoln about his suspension of habeas corpus during an insurrection, but barring an insurrection, Mr. Chairman, I can't understand why you would not agree with Mr. Cummings' amendment.
Will the gentleman yield?
I certainly will.
Can I ask the gentleman why you didn't offer this 2 years ago or 4 years ago if it was so important?
We have a whole new Congress here. And you know what? And I appreciate,
Please.
because the chairman was ready to cooperate. As a matter of fact, so well that in this morning's or yesterday's Politico, it said that Chairman Towns was not only fair, but he lost his job because he was too fair. Now, I don't think that, Mr. Chairman, that you're looking at any change within your caucus at this point, but I do believe that this question that we're raising is one that we've established the precedent that Republican chairs have gone along with concurrence. Now, I wish you would speak to the fact of why you will not go along with concurrence, because you've cited what's happened in a previous Congress with respect to Mr. Towns, but this is about you. This isn't about Mr. Towns. You're the chairman now.
Gentleman's time has expired. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Mack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess, you know, I'm a new member to this committee, and I'm a little confused. So we're arguing about an amendment from the minority side. They want to amend the rules, a rule that was their rule last Congress. Is that correct? I mean, this is the same exact rule, and now that they're in the minority, they want to change it? Is that?
The gentleman is correct.
So it seems to be a little hypocritical then today to come in on the other side of the aisle and say the rules were good enough for us when we were in the majority, but now that we're in the minority, we want to change them. You know, I hear a lot on the other side about bipartisanship and the intentions of the chairman and the power of the committee, but all I hear is this hypocrisy of on one hand, the rules were good enough, and on this hand, now that we're in the minority, they're not good enough. You know, it's really a shame at this point. I mean, I think if you really want a bipartisan vote, stick with your votes in the past. The bipartisan vote would be to defeat this amendment. And let's move on to doing the people's business. Part of the reason why I came to this committee is because I'm tired of people in the administration and other people are avoiding when we have questions. So, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect to this committee as a new member, the hypocrisy of the minority now to say this rule was good enough when we were in the majority, but now I want to change it is it's disappointing. I think if the American people are watching this, they're asking, what is it that the other side stands for?
Would the gentleman yield?
I'd be happy to yield.
Thank you very much. We have, I certainly understand the gentleman's concerns, but we've been pretty much forced into this position because we're not talking about the rule, we're talking about a practice, and the practice of the committee. And we wanted to read a colloquy back from 2007 between Davis and Waxman, but that was disallowed. And at that time, there was an agreement between them that it would go to a vote if there was disagreement. And so you've got two things happening here. You have a rule, but you also have a practice. And I know as an attorney you can identify with that, and so I'll yield back to the gentleman.
Well,
nobody's trying to be hypocritical is what I'm saying.
If I can reclaim my time, you can talk about the intent all you want, and I think we'll be able to judge the chairman on that as we move on. But you're looking to change the rules. And, Mr. Chairman, I think that this is now becoming one of those things where one side doesn't like it, the other side does like it. I don't think we're going to get any further with any more debate on this, and I'd call for the vote.
The call for the vote is not in order. Does the gentleman yield back?
Mr. Chairman, on that, then I ask the previous question. Move the previous question. However you have
The
to say
previous
it. I'm new
question
to this committee.
has been requested. Can I ask the gentleman to withdraw his previous question and allow one more from the other side to speak? And then we'll close it off and we'll move the previous question, if that's okay with the gentleman.
It's your prerogative, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. The gentleman withdraws his objection. Mr. Tierney is recognized for his.
I thank the chairman, and I think it's a little bit unfortunate that on the first day here we're hearing claims of hypocrisy and trying to close off debate. And I hope we don't go there. I mean, it's not been the practice of this committee to get involved in that. Last session, Mr. Flake and I and the Subcommittee on National Security had a good relationship that worked across it, and a lot of that was because we could accept each other's word, and that's pretty much been the history of this committee. And the reason why the motion was made to amend and put the words in is because we haven't heard the words that previous committees have customarily done in practice, and I would hope that this chairman would consider to do that, to just tell us that it is your intention and you will consult with the ranking minority member and get his consent before the subpoenas are issued or go to a vote of the committee. It's been the longstanding practice of that. We wouldn't need to seek an amendment because we would take the chairman at his word if he did it, just as previous members took the chairperson's word, whether they were Democrat or Republican, in the past. And the only example that the current chairman cites of Mr. Towns not following that bipartisan approach is one letter, a late afternoon letter, but I note that the chairman didn't object to that, and in fact, since then, is on record on September 13th as saying that Ed Towns and he worked really closely together, that he, meaning Ed Towns, helped me get subpoenas and get me information time and time again. We're supposed to do it together whenever possible. The only other time that the claim that was made by the chairman is back in 2005 in the case of Terry Schiavo, and in that case, Mr. Waxman did object on that to unilateral subpoena. So essentially what we're just saying is we should not be about unilateral subpoenas. We're more than willing to take the chairman's word that he will consult and get the agreement of the ranking member or take it to the full committee for a vote on that without changing the rule. But we've not heard those words of assurance, as has historically been the case in this committee, and that's why we move to amend. I yield back.
All time having expired, previous question is ordered. No. Are there any further comments? I move the previous question. Okay. All those in favor of the Cummings amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No. In the opinion of the Chair, the noes have it.
Roll call, please, Mr. Chairman.
A roll call is being requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Issa?
No.
Mr. Issa votes no. Mr. Burton? No. Mr. Burton votes no. Mr. Micah? Mr. Platts? No. Mr. Platts votes no. Mr. Turner? No. Mr. Turner votes no. Mr. McHenry? No. Mr. McHenry votes no. Mr. Jordan? No. Mr. Jordan votes no. Mr. Chaffetz? No. Mr. Chaffetz votes no. Mr. Mack? No. Mr. Mack votes no. Mr. Wahlberg?
No.
Mr. Wahlberg votes no. Mr. Lankford?
No.
Mr. Langford votes no. Mr. Amash?
No.
Mr. Amash votes no. Ms. Burkle? No. Ms. Burkle votes no. Dr. Gosar?
No.
Dr. Gosar votes no. Mr. Labrador? No. Mr. Labrador votes no. Mr. Meehan? No. Mr. Meehan votes no. Dr. Desjardins? No. Mr. Desjardins votes no. Mr. Walsh? No. Mr. Walsh votes no. Mr. Gowdy?
No.
Mr. Gowdy votes no. Mr. Ross?
No.
Mr. Ross votes no. Mr. Genta?
No.
Mr. Genta votes no. Mr. Farenthold?
No.
Mr. Farenthold votes no. Mr. Kelly?
No.
Mr. Kelly votes no. Mr. Cummings? Yes. Mr. Cummings votes yes. Mr. Towns?
Yes.
Mr. Towns votes yes. Mrs. Maloney? Yes. Ms. Maloney votes yes. Ms. Norton? Ms. Norton votes yes. Mr. Kucinich? Mr. Kucinich votes yes. Mr. Tierney? Yes. Mr. Tierney votes yes. Mr. Clay? Yes. Mr. Clay votes yes. Mr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Lynch votes yes. Mr. Cooper? Yes. Mr. Cooper votes yes. Mr. Connolly?
Aye.
Mr. Connolly votes yes. Mr. Quigley? Yes. Mr. Quigley votes yes. Mr. Davis? Aye. Mr. Davis votes yes. Mr. Braley? Mr. Welch? Mr. Yarmouth? Mr. Yarmouth votes yes. Mr. Murphy? Yes. Mr. Murphy votes yes. Ms. Spear? Yes. Ms. Spear votes yes.
The clerk will report.
On that vote, Mr. Chairman, there were 22 noes, 15 yeses.
The amendment is not agreed to. The Chair would recognize the gentlelady from California for a question.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I would like to have clarification on what the new provision that provides that a member of Congress or a member of the committee can be at depositions. Does that mean participate in the depositions or be present to observe the depositions?
That's a very, would the gentlelady yield? It's an extremely good question. There has always been a right for members to attend depositions. The rules of the committee, which we'll be glad to furnish you, have a procedure whether they are staff or members alternating back and forth. We have, because we are an investigative committee, we have a long set of procedures in which staff, and I'll shortcut it, we give 3 days notice of a deposition. Both the majority and minority show up, and there is a whole procedure for back and forth and time limits. Your side, obviously, I suspect your staff would acquiesce to your taking their time if you wanted it, but it would be the back and forth within that. If another member arrives from the other side, the same thing would occur. If 10 members show up, they do not change the deposition. It's simply a question of whose time are they speaking on, alternating. So it doesn't really change whether it's staff doing it or members. What the full House did, which I think is critical, and I appreciate the gentlelady is asking, is they've said that the person being deposed must waive the right to have a member present, one or more members present, or they will not be deposed by staff. And this comes from a series of depositions which were done staff only under a previous chairman, in which it was believed by then the minority, my side, that there was a tendency toward potential abuse because staff have a lot of time, they're not accountable to the voters. They could, in fact, if you will, be very tough on a deposition, somewhat abusing the fact that that person is paying their own money for their own lawyer and so on. So we felt that if the light of day, by being able to have a member of Congress there, the congressman's time, probably on both sides being important, that this would reduce or eliminate abuse. That was the reason that we lobbied the Speaker for it and got it into the rules. It will apply to this committee all the time and apply to any other committee that may be granted deposition authority at some future time.
So if reclaiming my time, if I understand you correctly, then that means that the time allotted per side remains the same. If a member of the committee chooses to participate, it would come off the time that is set aside for that particular.
The gentlelady is correct.
Thank you.
Would the gentlelady yield? First of all, I want to say to the Chairman, I think this is a good rule because, as you've said, Mr. Chairman, and to the gentlelady, there has been, and Mr. Towns has brought this up, in many instances, people have been dragged into depositions, and as one who's conducted many depositions, I think it's good to have certain limitations, have members present, if nothing else, to make sure that the process is a fair one. Depositions can be very expensive. Number one, you have to prepare the witness. Number two, you got to appear at the deposition. You got to prepare documents. Then there's follow-up and things of that nature. So a person could easily spend, just spending $200 an hour. Lawyers' fees are much higher than that in many instances. That adds up to be a lot of money. And so I think trying to respect witnesses and trying to be careful, Mr. Chairman, about who we're calling into these depositions, I think, and the Chairman has assured me that we would talk about those things and try to make sure that we're not deposing people that don't really need to be deposed. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Chairman? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, obviously, that would be a fair statement, that we want to limit those just as we will subpoenas. With that, I understand the gentleman has an additional amendment.
Yes.
The ranking member is recognized for his amendment.
I have an amendment at the desk, Mr. Chairman.
The clerk will report.
Amendment to the rules of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform offered by Representative Cummings. Strike subsection D of Rule 12 and insert the following. D1, with the concurrence of the
The amendment will be considered as read, and the ranking member is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief, and I think that this is an amendment that we can all agree with. Mr. Chairman, one of your primary objections to the previous amendment seemed to be that it would not allow you to issue emergency subpoenas, and I can certainly understand that. In other words, there could be cases when an individual sought by the committee is a flight risk or is about to board an airplane out of the country. In these cases, waiting for the committee to vote on a subpoena could prevent us from obtaining the information we seek. And as I've said to the Chairman on numerous occasions, we too are seeking the truth, and we want the process to work. The amendment addresses this concern directly. It requires the Chairman to seek minority concurrence on a committee vote, but it also includes an exception for emergencies. In those cases, it requires the Chairman to notify committee members within 3 days after the subpoena is issued about the nature of the emergency and the efforts to contact the ranking member. It also requires the Chairman to explain why waiting for a committee vote would prevent us from obtaining the information sought by the subpoena. This is a common sense compromise that I think you should be able to support, Mr. Chairman. In fact, let me give credit where credit is due. This is the exact proposal you made at this committee's organizational meeting back in 2007, and this is what you said at that time. And I quote, I might just suggest that other committees on which I serve, specifically the Select Intelligence Committee, have a procedure which I believe would, if we cannot accept the concurrence, their procedure is a consultation, a full vote of the committee, unless the Chairman finds it to be extraordinary, meaning that for some reason, in this case, the subpoena would have to be issued in a hurry, end of quote. You went on to say, Mr. Chairman, that this approach would not take away from any of the Chairman's power, but would establish the steps he should follow in these cases. Given that this was your idea, Mr. Chairman, I hope that you will accept this amendment. I urge members to vote for it.
The Chair has no interest in changing the rules as they've been for the previous Congress, and would oppose the amendment. Now call the question. Are all those in favor of the Cummings amendment signify by saying aye?
Aye.
All those opposed? No. In the opinion of the Chair, the noes have it. The noes have it. Roll call. Clerk will report the roll.
Mr. Issa?
No.
Mr. Issa votes no. Mr. Burton? No. Mr. Burton votes no. Mr. Micah? No. Mr. Micah votes no. Mr. Platts? Mr. Turner? Mr. Turner votes no. Mr. McHenry? Mr. McHenry votes no. Mr. Jordan? Mr. Chaffetz? No. Mr. Chaffetz votes no. Mr. Mack? No. Mr. Mack votes no. Mr. Wahlberg? Mr. Lankford? No. Mr. Lankford votes no. Mr. Amash? No. Mr. Amash votes no. Ms. Burkle? Ms. Burkle votes no. Dr. Gosar? Mr. Labrador? No. Mr. Labrador votes no. Mr. Meehan? No. Mr. Meehan votes no. Dr. Desjardins? No. Dr. Desjardins votes no. Mr. Walsh? No. Mr. Walsh votes no. Mr. Gowdy?
No.
Mr. Gowdy votes no. Mr. Ross? No. Mr. Ross votes no. Mr. Ginta? No. Mr. Ginta votes no. Mr. Farenthold?
No.
Mr. Farenthold votes no. Mr. Kelly? No. Mr. Kelly votes no. Mr. Cummings? Yes. Mr. Cummings votes aye. Mr. Towns?
Aye.
Mr. Towns votes aye. Mrs. Maloney? Aye. Ms. Maloney votes aye. Ms. Norton? Ms. Norton votes yes. Mr. Kucinich? Mr. Kucinich votes yes. Mr. Tierney? Mr. Clay? Mr. Clay votes yes. Mr. Lynch? Mr. Lynch votes yes. Mr. Cooper? Mr. Cooper votes yes. Mr. Connolly? Mr. Quigley? Mr. Quigley votes yes. Mr. Davis? Mr. Davis votes yes. Mr. Braley? Mr. Welch? Mr. Yarmouth? Mr. Yarmouth votes yes. Mr. Murphy? Mr. Murphy votes yes. Ms. Spear? Ms. Spear votes aye.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mr. Connolly. I wish to be recorded as voting aye.
Mr. Connolly votes aye.
The clerk will report the tally.
On that vote, Mr. Chairman, there were 20 noes, 14 ayes.
The amendment is not agreed to. Are there any other amendments?
Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman from Maryland.
Mr. Tierney had an amendment. I don't know whether he'll be back in time, but I want to just go to a final inquiry Mr. Chairman. And if he gets back, then we will address that. Mr. Chairman, I have an inquiry about how you are interpreting the rules with regard to committee records. I know you mentioned some things earlier when we first began, but I want to make sure we are clear.
The gentleman will suspend. I don't mind his inquiry. I'd like to get to the final vote, and we will not adjourn until after this is discussed. Hearing no more amendments, the question now occurs on the committee resolution. All those in favor of adopting the resolution, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The resolution is agreed to. Mr. Ranking Member is recognized for his inquiry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. House Rule 10, Clause 9G, provides that both Republican and Democratic staff shall be accorded equitable treatment with respect to the accessibility of committee records. That means if one side gets them, the other side gets them, as I understand it. That's basic fairness. But certainly that's not what's been happening. On January 14th, you sent a letter to the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Napolitano requesting information about the Department's policies on the Freedom of Information Act requests, and I want to thank you, by the way, for getting that letter to us about a half an hour before this hearing. But you did not provide it to us before then, and back on January 16, 2011, your spokesman stated publicly that your letter was based on other documents obtained by the committee according to a press account. On Sunday, Oversight Panel spokesman Frederick Hill said ISA sent the letter, and I quote, because the committee has received documents that raise questions about the veracity of DHS officials on that matter. And after reading this story, my staff requested copies of both your letter to Department of Homeland Security and the additional documents referred to by your spokesman, and your staff did not reply. Here are my questions regarding the document access rule. First, is your letter to DHS signed on January 14th a committee record? And if so, why did it take us so long to get it? And is that going to be the practice that we have to wait 2 weeks to get a letter? Second, are the additional documents referred to by your spokesman committee records? And if so, why don't we have those? And then I'll ask my other questions.
I appreciate the gentleman's inquiry in this colloquy. It is our intention to deliver all produced information on a bipartisan basis, whether it's produced to the minority or the majority. What I mean by that is that if the administration comes and gives you documents, and those documents are pursuant to request, you must turn them over to the majority also. If I receive such information, I must turn them over. Whenever possible, we're going to encourage the administration, as they have done in some cases in the past, to simply deliver duplicate copies, to deliver to both of us so there be no doubt, and so that it's relatively easy not to wait for a clerk to report it. Production made to the committee will be delivered to our nonpartisan staff. Their job will be, in fact, to determine whether it is a committee record and distribute it. We rely on them. Several of these people, the clerks, have been under Mr. Towns and myself, and some of them even his predecessor. So we're going to try to use that. I look forward to working with you, Mr. Cummings, on coming up with a standard for correspondence. It has not been the practice of this committee for correspondence to be shared fully, whether it's from the majority or minority. Correspondence today, as you know, is primarily email. There's a huge amount of it. Email has not been typically CC'd the same way. So I look forward to working with you and both of our staffs during the break to come up with a procedure to designate for all our subcommittee chairmen and ranking members how this is going to be worked, because there's a vast amount of correspondence that goes on, some of which will probably not be shared, but I want to make sure that it is shared equally on a basis that is agreeable to both of us. So I look forward to working with you on correspondence. When it comes to discoverable material, I fully expect the nonpartisan staff to ensure that either a copy is made for the minority or that the administration or other body has delivered to both of us the information. Thank the gentleman.
And I think that there's still an issue left here, and that is timing. In other words, if we, say, for example, have a letter that goes out January 14th, we get it on the 25th, and how soon can we expect to get these documents that you were just talking about? I mean, in other words, timing here on the Hill, it can be very significant. If we get something 10, 12 days after the majority gets it, it can certainly be to our disadvantage. Our staff wants to prepare. They're working very hard, just as yours is, and they need to be able to do that. And so I was just wondering what you had in mind.
And I appreciate the gentleman, not for this colloquy at the moment, but I appreciate the gentleman's inquiry. And fortunately, to your right, you have the former chairman of the committee. And I pledge to you that we will work to, because of the increased amount of digital data we're receiving, in addition to paper, to shave off even some time from what Mr. Towns was able to do. Moreover, as I said, we were going to use our mutually agreed to nonpartisan staff to be the arbiters of making sure these things get copied and distributed in a timely fashion. I think that's the most important thing, is that we depoliticize materials which have been ordered through deposition, subpoenas, or other requests. Again, I look forward to working with you on resolving a standard for correspondence.
And when can we expect to get the documents connected with the DHS letter? I know we got the letter, and there was your spokesman referred to some documents that caused you to even write the letter, and I was wondering when we could get those.
I'm being informed by the staff that the response is due this coming Friday. So I would assume that you'll have it, if it arrives before 4:30, you'll have it this coming Friday.
The only reason I asked that is because your spokesman said you already had them, so that's why I asked.
You believe what you read in the press?
I believe your spokesman.
But if we have anything, of course, it'd be provided.
Thank you very much.
With that, I want to do a little housekeeping. Pursuant to committee rules.
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't finished.
Well, let me do the housekeeping, and then we'll come back. Pursuant to Committee Rule 6A, the chairman and the ranking members assign members to the subcommittee. These assignments have been made and are each of your folders. Without objection, we ask that those assignments be included in the record. With that, I'd recognize the ranking member.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going back to the 160 industry letters, and I have one additional inquiry about the rule. In December, you sent the 160 companies and organizations asking for job-killing regulations, and I understand you did this as ranking member at the end of December. My staff contacted your staff to request copies of the company's responses on the following dates: January 4th, January 6th, January 7th, January 12th, and January 14th. Our requests were ignored. Yesterday, you sent me a letter explaining why your letter stated this, and I quote, "As these materials are part of an ongoing oversight effort, I have chosen to have my staff focus on receiving, organizing, and analyzing the response to these letters. I expect to be able to make an initial analysis as well as all responses received as today public no later than February 11, 2011. And I want to, and then we, of course, received the letter today. And if I read the letter that you wrote to us today, does that mean that we are going to get the actual responses to those letters? I just want to be clarification.
No, I thank the gentleman. As I said, we clearly want to get to a correspondence understanding that has not previously been there, so that we can have our staffs know when to share and so on. However, it does mean that the intention is to deliver all of our correspondence, something that has not historically been done, to you at that time. The only reason that we want to finish the correspondence is, quite frankly, we believe that it's extremely important that when correspondence is released, that it properly be vetted. We're going through to make sure there's not something that, if it became public, would be inappropriate, like any email or other correspondence. But I look forward to not only delivering this to you in its original form, but also coming up with an agreement as to future correspondence, both the majority and minority.
Well, I appreciate that. And one of the reasons why I asked that is that we didn't want to have to rely on the majority's analysis because we've got some pretty good people who can do their own analyzing. So we really appreciate that. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I want to I want to have this right. Are you, with regard to transparency, are you willing to make sure that December was the month before? Let me go back. When are these records, are you claiming that because these records were done, in other words, the letters were sent before you became chairman, that they are not official records, or they are? You follow what I'm saying?
I thank the ranking member. I think these issues have been resolved. We have a trail of each of our view of this correspondence. I look forward to working with the gentleman on resolving the issue of how in the future correspondence will be shared. And with that, the committee stands adjourned.